This is For the Love of Learning, Voices of the Alternative Education Movement. Be inspired by the voices of visionaries, changemakers, and ordinary, extraordinary people who do what they do all for the love of learning.
More about the homeschooling journey. First on tonight's panel, meet Redonda. Redonda is a former social worker who has worked with a children's program, who has worked as a children's program coordinator for a domestic violence shelter and later became the child welfare specialist for the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence. However, Redonda's real journey into child development began with the birth of her daughter, Brianna, who is now 14 and has never attended public school. Her daughter is an accomplished musician playing viola for the Florida Symphony Youth Orchestra. Hi, Brianna, I know you're watching. In 2006, Redonda started the homeschool support group, Home Educators Network of Central Florida, which has grown to over 700 families strong. So welcome, Redonda. We are so happy to have you here tonight.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. Next, let's meet Sophia. Sophia is an ordinary stay-at-home mom, laughing and praying her way throughout the day. Her former music business experience with Madonna, David Bowie, and the Smashing Pumpkins prepared her somewhat for 3 kids, one in elementary school, one in middle school, and her eldest in high school. Sophia loves to talk about her homeschooling experience and encourages all interested to give up fear and be confident and go for it. I can't wait, Sophia. Welcome, Sophia. So happy you're here to share your story.
Thank you, Lainey. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the panel.
Yes, we're so excited. Yay, I can't wait to get started. But first, let's meet Heather. Heather was first introduced to homeschooling back in the 80s when her younger siblings were homeschooled. Heather has homeschooled all 4 of her children, now ages 13 to 26. Like many homeschoolers, Heather has found homeschooling to be very liberating. Today, she inspires many to ditch the traditional methods in favor of a more exciting and natural learning experiences. Heather runs Celebration Education, where learning is turned into exciting adventures. Welcome, Heather, and we're so thrilled you're here tonight on tonight's panel, too.
I'm glad to be here.
Yay. Well, let's get started. I'm super excited about tonight's show. Heather, why don't we start off with you? If you can tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to the homeschooling journey.
Well, I think probably the biggest thing that made me want to homeschool is I was frustrated. I kind of felt like in public schools, they only give you one side of every story. It's whatever story happens to be told in the textbook. And I thought it was limiting. I wanted more for myself, and I wanted there to be more for my children, that they can explore lots of different ways, not just a single book that is somebody's version of the truth. So that was exciting to me, and we moved through that. But actually, when we first started homeschooling my older children, it was through the county where they gave us a stack of books for each of my kids, and it wasn't too bad because it didn't take long to get through the stack of books in the younger grades, but I still found it to be limiting. I wanted my education wise, my two children were they're really about in the same level, and I wanted to, even though they were a year apart in school, I wanted to combine them. I felt like I was doing double duty, doing one, a whole set of stuff for one kid, and then I turn around and do almost the same thing for the other kid. I wanted to combine them. But the program we were on, there were no charter schools at the time, so it was not a lot to choose from as far as public school offerings. And they wouldn't let me come. They said, well, you can't skip grades. So I thought that was ridiculous. And so we went independent after that, and we've been independent ever since. Even when the charter schools came along, we never signed up for any of the charter schools because we kind of had our own rhythm. And then in 2006, I started Celebration Education, where we get together once a week and we have these fun experiences where it's based off of a topic or a theme each week that we do several school subjects in a 2-hour session. It's just a lot of fun. I could tell you about more as we get into the show if you want.
Yeah. I do want to actually explore that a little bit deeper. But what you're saying is when you first started your homeschooling journey, you actually did do the sit down at the kitchen table and here's the lessons as it's, subscribed by the school. So you did have that experience.
But I was always more relaxed, in not that I felt like we had to do everything, but it was really easy. The kids didn't mind it. They almost enjoyed it because it was really only an hour and a half a day with each of them, in kindergarten and first grade. And we got through it. We got done early all the time. So it really was. And it was never the kitchen table though. We were on the floor.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that. So did your homeschooling style change throughout the years?
Well, yeah, after doing the kitchen table floor thing, we and when I went independent, I basically at that point I just wanted each of the kids to do their reading, writing, and their math each day, just a little bit, and then we took it from there and would do exploring. We started going through world history, and as we went through world history, we did each of the countries and fully delved into it as long as we wanted to. We didn't have a set schedule. We would say, okay, we're in China, and we just do everything Chinese until we're exhausted with Chinese and go on to Japan, that kind of thing. So it was just, even before I heard of this method that I'm doing now, we were already exploring was our way of learning. We went on lots of field trips and just tried to open it up as much as we could to bring more in to what we're doing instead of just limiting it to, again, the books.
Yeah, and it actually sounds a lot like what we're doing, which is world schooling.
Right?
This is a nice tie-in. Wonderful. Well, we'll jump back over to you and really dig into what your day looks like and what the quote-unquote curriculum looks like. But first, let's move over to Sophia. Sophia, I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about your background and what brought you to the homeschooling journey. And I do want to say that when I introduced you in the introduction, it was from your bio, and you called yourself an ordinary mom. And I think anybody who homeschools and spends their time educating their children you're not ordinary. You're extraordinary. So I just wanted to say that to start off with.
You're so sweet. Let's see a little bit about my homeschooling journey. The reason that I decided to homeschool, Lainey and I actually went to elementary school, and I think we were together all the way through high school. Did we graduate high school together? We did. Okay. So I got very, very bored in school. By the time I was in 7th, 8th grade, I realized I could read, I could write, I could do basic math. I was able to do what I felt like it was pretty much all that they were going to teach me at that point. We were starting to repeat courses and kind of do the same stuff over and over again. And I lost interest. And I started to, go off the path a little bit, spent more time socializing at school than learning anything. And I really, truly feel like when I was in high school, I thought, if I ever have kids, I am not going to do it the same way because I'm bored and I'm not learning anything. I guess I kind of checked out a little bit. I wasn't really feeling connected to the sciences because I just, it's not me and personally. I was more artistic and I felt like I was going to go in a different direction in my life. And I just did not feel like I was getting out of school. Well, I definitely wasn't putting into it. So I wasn't getting out because I wasn't putting in. So I dreamt of doing something different. And my whole music career and all of those years of my life, I thought if I ever have a family, I want to homeschool. I want to do it differently. And I actually thought I would do it even more differently than I'm doing it. We are not off the grid. We are connected to some charters. My oldest son is not in a charter. My younger two are. We've done everything from come alongside the public school in the beginning, then we went totally off the grid, then we kind of snuck back in through charter. So I've done a little bit of everything, trying to find what works for us. And I think we're there now. We're piecemealing. We're part of charters and co-ops. I love that Redonda's started this fabulous thing in Florida, and Heather's doing all these neat things. It's so great to hear the other ways that women are doing it. And I want to be with all of you and do what you're doing, especially you, Lainey, on the road. So I love the different ways that we learn. And I don't think I'm doing it as fun as I wanted to do it, but that's kind of, my kids have let it. They're not like me. So it's amazing. They don't want to sit around and do art projects all day. So I have to teach them the way that works best for them. And it might be more boring sometimes.
Well, I love that you're picking and choosing the elements that are working for you and for your family. And who knows better than what works for your family? And I think that's really empowering. I mean, it really is. So yes, thank you for sharing that, Sophia. And we'll come back and talk more about curriculum and what learning looks like for you in just a bit. But first, let's jump over to Redonda. And Redonda, I'm so anxious to hear your story as well. So go ahead and give us a little bit about your background and let us know what led you down the path of homeschooling.
Sure. Well, mine is kind of twofold. The first part kind of mirrors Sophia's. I was in all the advanced classes. I was in gifted and all of those things throughout high school. And I found that when I raised my hand to ask a question, I was being told, "Oh, that's not on the test." And this was well before the standardized test became such a big thing in the public schools. And advanced classes, they're telling you, well, it's not on the test. So you have relevant questions, but you can't really talk about anything other than what's being tested. And I kind of then felt like, this is not really helping. As a matter of fact, I took my senior year of high school in college because I spent my junior year in my guidance counselor's office, except when I had a test. And I'd go and I'd take the test and I'd come back and say, "Hey, what you got for me to do?" Because, I'm bored. So he told me about the early admissions program, and I was like all about that. And so I took my senior year of high school in college, got my degree in sociology, and that's where the second part of what led me to homeschool comes in, is because I worked for many, many years in social services. I actually did programs in the public school where I did a program called HEAL, Help End Abusive Living, and I worked with 4th and 5th graders in one of our local counties, all throughout the county system. And basically, it's kind of cliche, but I've seen the village and I don't want it raising my children, so that I knew that when I had a child that I would definitely take some other path.
Yeah. So you definitely have an experience of being out there in the world and in the, I hate to say it, but you were in the system and probably not seeing the best, the most positive side of it. Did you go ahead.
I saw both sides of it, which one of the things I saw was the labeling that takes place inside the school system. I saw that both within my own experience in the public school system, because I was the good kid and the smart kid, and and some of these kids that were brilliant, maybe had different learning styles and were not labeled as such. But I also saw, when I worked social services and started going into the schools, I actually did all of the schools in one of our local counties except for one. And that was because when I went in, the principal told me, "Oh, well, we don't have those kids in our school," because it was an upper middle class school, So obviously they didn't have any kids with domestic violence issues or anything like that. And it broke my heart. But because of confidentiality issues, I couldn't even tell that principal, really, because I have 2 of your students in my outreach program. So I just had to sit there and think, wow, these kids are missing out because of the labeling, basically, that goes on in the system.
Yeah, and so opting out of the system, you were able to opt out of all of the labeling and all of that. Now, Redonda, you and I are similar in the sense where we have one child.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have one child, and I know that everybody else on the panel has more than one child. So, do you feel that there are specific challenges specifically for just, you know, having one child without siblings, with homeschooling, of course?
I think the biggest challenge might be just, you know, getting her out and about with other kids, but we don't really have that issue. I started my co-op in 2006, so she was only 5. And obviously we do play dates and park days and events and holiday parties and things like that. So that was never an issue. And in some ways, I think it's a lot easier because you don't have to figure out curricula for more than one learning style because all students learn differently. So, you know, it's both challenging, and I also believe that it's a little easier in some ways as well. So.
Well, first of all, I totally agree with you. And just to let you know that I'm asking you these questions, but I don't have that as an opinion. But I'm asked those questions too all the time. How do you homeschool one kid? But nobody would ever ask, how do you put, you know, a single kid in school? You know, you just don't get those questions. You know, how do you educate a kid in public school if you only have one kid? I mean, you know. So, yeah, I was just being the devil's advocate in that moment. Actually, let's jump back over to Heather. And Heather, I want to ask you a little bit about the curriculum that you use with your children. And if you could talk about that.
Well, directly with my children, we pretty much just unschool. The 2 kids that I have at home right now are teenagers, so I feel like they're old enough to be self-directed, and so they have their interests that they follow. So I don't use my curriculum so much with them. But I do have this curriculum that I use. It's that is based off of fun. I figure when kids are having fun, they're in the right state of mind to learn. And because kids are naturally curious and they want to know things and touch things and do things, that's the way the curriculum that I write is. So we have a year-long thing, which this year, what is it? It's we're doing Around the World in 80 Days. And based on Jules Verne's novel. And so we are taking the school year, it's a lot longer than 80 days, but we're going through the novel very slowly as we experience the different things throughout the world. It just so happens that today, in our group, at our little center, we were in the Pacific Ocean. And so today we made posters about the ocean, and we dissected squid, and we what else did we do? We just all these fun, interesting things that you would do, not so much necessarily when you're at home because you don't want to have to buy all the materials, or because it takes a group that you want to, and the kids want to be with friends anyway, so they come together and they do activities together that are fun and interesting. We played a physical game called Islands, where they try to get across the field only on cardboard, and just silly and fun things. We did the 24-hour clock, because on boats they use the 24-hour clock instead of the 12-hour clock. So we integrate several different school subjects all off of the topic of the day, which is based off of the theme of the year. So it's just fun. And then we have field trips to go with it, and I don't know, it's exciting. We love it.
Yeah. Sophia, why don't you jump right in?
I think that sounds fantastic, Heather. And I wanted to find out, did you buy that curriculum, the 80 days, or you're just working it out as you go?
Yes. And it was the first theme I ever did. We're actually repeating this from a previous year, but because I enjoyed doing the around the world thing when my older kids were younger, it was a natural fit for me to make this as our first theme. We've done several different themes by now. Last year was all crafting a country, which it was American history with a Minecraft twist. And it was just a lot of fun. So, right? So, yeah, and I forgot your question completely right now.
I think you answered it. I was just wondering if it was something that was available for the rest of us, or maybe you'll jot it down and the rest of us can copy it one year.
Actually, we have teachers in 4 counties in Southern California that use our curriculum and in different centers. So, and some teachers, instead of working for us, they go ahead and buy it and teach it to their own group.
Love it. Thank you.
Sure.
Awesome. You brought up a couple of things, and I want to go back to these things, some things that really stick with me. Number one, learning should be fun. And as parents, we have control over making this so. I mean, we really have control of providing a fun experience for our children, and schools don't seem to do that. And the second thing is exploring. Exploring is so important. So yes, we'll come back to that. But let's jump back over to Redonda and talk to you a little bit about the curriculum that you use with your daughter.
Well, we are child-led, I would say. I'm not quite unschooling because she likes the books and things like that, but I'm definitely child-led. We're just starting our journey into high school this year. So we're going to start buckling down a little bit, mostly because I need to jump through the hoops because my daughter wants to go into a degree in music. So we're going to jump through the hoops to get into the college. But we've been child-led, just kind of picking and choosing what we like. We use different curricula. We were using Math UC for a while, and then she decided that she didn't like that, so we're going to try Saxon. We tried Saxon in the early years, and it was boring, so we didn't do that. So we just basically pick and choose, very child-led, very eclectic is what we do. And I also started our enrichment center. I think you saw that in my bio. And I started that because I realized that just as students have different learning styles, teachers have different teaching styles. And although I can teach my daughter just about any subject, I might not be teaching to her teaching style. So she might want to hear it from someone else. And one of the things I do when I interview, because all of our instructors are experts in their field. They either have a degree in their field, they're not necessarily teachers, some of them are. Some of them have teaching certificates. Others, like our math teacher, he was a retired engineer. He had taught in the public school system for some time, but most of his came from direct experiences. And all of my teachers, what I'm listening for when I'm interviewing is that, like Heather said, they're fun, that they understand that there are various different learning styles. And I'll go ahead and keep using my math teacher as an example, because when I interviewed him, one of the things he said is when he was in the public school system, the principal or whomever it was came in to give his evaluation, and he was sitting in the classroom. Well, he was in an inner city school, and these kids were in math, mind you, and they were raising their hands, go, ooh, 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 me next, me next. He actually got points taken off because the kids were not, they weren't sitting quietly at their desk. He didn't have control of his classroom, so to speak. And that bothered him because they were engaged. So I immediately was like, that's what we want. We want engaged. And, I'd sit outside the class and listen. And these kids, they were laughing. They were having fun. I never laughed in math class. And that's what I want to see. I want to see, instructors that come in and talk to the kids at their level. One of the first things he told the kids is math books are written by PhDs for PhDs. So don't let them scare you. And I had kids that I know personally were struggling with math anxiety and things like that. And just to see these kids blossom in that class was fabulous. And ours are pick and choose. So again, parents that are unschoolers, they can pick one class if that's what their kid wants to take. It's not an all day, you have to take these. And it's also very group led. I need 3 students to make a class run. So if someone says, hey, I want to do a class on basket weaving, I will go out and find someone who is an expert in basket weaving. And if you bring me 2 more students, we will run a class. So that's basically what we do.
That's amazing. So now you're the second panelist who has mentioned fun and something that I'm completely passionate about, which is community learning in community. I think it's an incredibly powerful way to learn. And I love that you've created a learning center that's not compulsory. It's based on interests. Before I move on to Sophia, I want to ask you one more thing. Redonda, you have mentioned several times already that you talked about your daughter's learning style. Can you talk a little bit about, first of all, as a parent, how you tapped into her learning style, and then how you actually figure out ways to provide information, or I don't want to say lessons, but exercises or whatever that really fits with her learning style?
Sure. Well, my background is sociology. So I also had psychology classes that went along with sociology in college. So that's where I really started to learn about learning styles, because I found out during an early education psychology class that I am a tactile learner. I never knew that going through school. And most of you know, because most of you are graduates of the public school system, so most of you know that it's visual and audio. It's visual, audio, that's it. That's all you get in school. If that's not your learning style, that's probably not going to work real well for you. I was that student that would doodle and write on her paper. And that's because I found out later that's because that's what made my neurons fire. I am not auditory at all. So Charlie Brown's teacher was, that's what it was like for me. It was wah, wah, wah. And so that's kind of how I knew about learning styles. But I also think that you don't necessarily have to have that background, that education, so to speak. I think it's intuitive. You can kind of see what works and what doesn't work. And if something's not working, try something different. You can explain something a different way, or go online and look. I know that for me, I would be explaining maybe a math topic to my daughter, and she wouldn't understand the way I was explaining it. And I would try. And finally I'd say, okay, watch the Khan Academy guy. Because she liked him and it clicked with her. Whatever he said that was just this much different than what I said clicked. So I think it's just trial and error some. It's intuitive, just seeing what their style is. Obviously, she's a musician, so auditory is important to her as well. But she's also very kinesthetic, I think, moving around and feeling and touching. So I think a lot of it's intuitive as well.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Great. So let's jump on over to you, Sophia. And if you could share with us a little bit about the type of curriculum that you use, or, what your lessons look like and so forth.
Well, we've kind of jumped around a bit over the years. We started out, we were on the public school curriculum. That was the first thing I did. I wanted some accountability. So in Southern California, we had a program that linked up with the public schools, and I was able to go in and get their curriculum and bring it home. And the kids were basically doing everything that they were doing in public school, but it was parent-led, and we could add in field trips and art projects and different things that would make me happy, and I felt like I was keeping them more engaged and interested. But after about, let's see, I think I did that for 3 years, and I decided when my oldest was in second grade, so we started in kindergarten, and by second grade I decided I'm not so into this anymore, and I realized that I'm not trying to replicate what the public schools are doing, so I think I need to try something different. So we stepped out and we did a Sunlight curriculum for, oh my goodness, we did that for probably 6 years. And I like that the other women have different math choices. Matthew C's on my list to try that out for high school. That may come up in the next year or so. We have done Saxon almost exclusively for math. I personally like it, There are things that have driven my children crazy because it's very dry and basic and repetitive, but the repetitiveness, I think, is what helps them to remember, which is why I like it, but that may not be their learning style. That's why we may switch up to Matthew C, because that may be something that works better for them. We've done a handful over the last, well, let's see. I have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and an elementary school. So my high schooler is the one that has had the biggest variety of different types of teaching. And my middle schooler as well. We do a handful of online classes, which I find fantastic because I'm not a PhD. My high school graduation diploma is just about the best I'm ever going to get. So it's good for me to have some helpers that know what they're doing. And so we do a live online math class. That's out. He's in, I think, Washington, and there's students all over the United States taking his class, which is really fun. Because the kids actually get to dialogue a little bit with kids in other states. You know, we're having a 70-degree day and they're having, frostbite. So that's kind of interesting. And then we're part of several different co-ops. Like I said, we're in Southern California where homeschooling is extremely popular. It's not such a strange thing like it was 10 or 15 years ago. There's lots of co-ops, and I partner with different schools where I'm either a teacher or just a mom that brings my kids. And it sounds a lot like what Redonda's provided for her community, which is great. I'm basically the person that's sucking up what people like Redonda are providing, so it's great. And hopefully one day I'll turn around and teach more and be more a part of those things. But yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. So the next question actually comes from this conversation about curriculum. And this is kind of an abstract question. And I know there's going to be different answers from the panel. What is the point of education? Sophia?
Let's see, I'm laughing. What is the point? I don't know. That's way too deep of a question for me. I really think maybe somebody else should answer this question. I'm not sure. I love for my kids to, I want them to be educated when they go out into the world. I want them to think for themselves. I want them to be able to, see, my mind went off. This is why someone else should be answering the question. What is it when you can think on your feet, which is what I'm not doing right now? Common sense. I want them to have common sense. I want them to be able to figure things out. I want them to know how to read a map, for crying out loud. There's just basic skills that I think I want them to have. And in terms of where they end up going, I'm starting to see a path for my kids, but it's not definite. I don't know. My initial goal was to send them all to four-year universities. And guess what? That's not the goal anymore. So.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I totally put you on the spot, but you said some really important things. Think on your own, know how to read a map, and have common sense. I mean, I would hope that every child growing up will have those abilities. And I truly think that you nailed it. That's the point. That is the point. So good job, Sophia. Redonda, I want to ask you the same question. What do you think the point of education is?
Sure. For me, the point of education is to help a child find their passion, help them find what they want to learn about, is to provide the tools. Me as an educator, it's my job to provide the tools. It's their job to take that and learn to love learning. I think if you're forcing it down their throat, it's not going to work. I think just helping guide them toward finding what they're passionate about. What do they love? What do they want to do with the rest of their lives? Most of us don't really want to go sit in that cubicle all day and, work for someone else and do those things that we have, in my opinion, erroneously said is the American dream. Most of us want to follow our passion and make something of that passion. And I think for me as an educator, that's my goal, is to provide the means for my daughter to find what she wants to do and her passion. What is it that she wants to make her life about?
Absolutely beautiful. And we say the same thing, but we use different words. As unschoolers, our job is to facilitate our children to find their passions. Yeah. And it's the same thing. Yeah. I mean, in essence, we want our children to be happy, and that's really the bottom line. But I think this is a conversation about education, and I think there's a lot of ideas about education as a thing that exists outside of ourselves that we have to attain. And I think we're missing the point there, especially with younger children. And I'm actually, let's move back over to Heather, because you talk a lot about fun in learning. And so is there some tie-in in
Yes,
your
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so have you heard of the sneaky chef? It is this chef who will who sneaks healthy stuff into food that children like to eat, right? And so they don't know that they're eating healthy, good for you stuff. But as far as education goes, I wouldn't be the sneaky chef, like we're having fun and, oh, don't tell the kids they just learned something. I want the kids to associate learning with fun. I want it to be right out there in the open that learning is fun, that it's something that you like to do and they're going to continue to like to do throughout their lives. And so talking about what learning is, because the other ladies basically covered it, right? But I wanted to mention something that learning is not. It is not about learning facts and figures, which is what most people think it may be, because you're passing these tests. But the truth is, and everybody knows it, but they're afraid to say it, you're going to forget majority of the things that you're learning in school. It's kind of an exercise in futility, you know. So the point is that they need to be find their passions. They need to find themselves. They need to find what works for them. They need to find, working toward what they're going to be when they grow up, kind of thing. And the facts and figures are great, and I love them. Kids love them too. They love learning things and seeing things and trying things. But that's not what it's about. It's about learning about yourself. It's about learning who you are and what you will become. And loving to learn.
Well said. Well said. I think a lot of times too, we equate education with learning, and I really think they're different things. And yes, each one of you panelists have said the love of learning, and that's the name of it. For the love of learning is the name of this show.
Right.
We're all tapped into the same thing here. Before we move on, Heather, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you decided that unschooling was working for you and your family, because you and I are both unschoolers and we don't use curriculum.
Well, I would say the biggest teacher of that is my own children, and just in that it's been said that every child is different. If you're not listening to your child and addressing and giving them what they need education-wise, you may be missing the mark. You may be not less effective if you're not giving them what they need. And your children will tell you, this isn't working. I'm not reading this math book, or I'm not interested in that, or I want more of this. Can you take me to the library, or can you take me to the hardware store? These are the things that the kids will come to you with, and they will basically, when they're on that path where they love to learn, then you can just follow them. You can let them be your teacher. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's really about not dividing up the day into lessons. It's about learning in every situation. Right. So, yeah. Great.
Right.
Let's jump back over to Sophia. I want to ask you, Sophia, how do you deal with critics that may have some sort of criticism about your homeschooling choices?
I smile and wish them luck on their choices. I don't want to argue with them. I think as my kids have gotten older, the proof is in the pudding. I have great kids. They work hard. They're following their passions. I think both of the other moms on the panel actually illustrated it better than I did when they were talking about listening to your kids, following their hearts, finding out what they're called to do, and then ushering them right into that. And that's where I stand. I like to just basically I'm watching what my kids are doing, and I'm equipping them in the way that they are being called. And it's just been a blast. And I think my critics have been silenced just because anyone that was doubtful or concerned has come back to me and said, we didn't think you'd make it. We didn't think it would work. And your kids are great. And amen. I've even been asked to lead other people's children and sisters and relatives and friends that are like, yeah, we've seen what you've done and we think it's great and we'd like you to, talk to us more about that. So I guess we can win over our critics. Who knew?
Awesome. And your passion speaks louder than anything. I mean, we can feel your passion and commitment to homeschooling. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's the Mediterranean blood.
Awesome. And Redonda, what about you? Do you have critics that you've needed to address or silence or connect with?
I have been extremely lucky in that I've had a ton of support in the homeschool community. I've had, and my parents are extremely supportive. I don't have any critics in my immediate circle. Everyone that I know has been extremely supportive. I have friends who are teachers. They're very supportive. So I've been lucky in that regard. The only critics I've ever faced are, random people that when you say, oh, I homeschooled, and they want to tell you why it's horrible. And, I don't know these people, so they don't really bother me. Sometimes I'll try to educate them, and other times, much like Sophia said, I feel like my daughter is my resume. It's like you can talk to her and see that what I'm doing is working. She's 14 years old. She's very accomplished. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, as she said.
Wonderful. And Heather, what about you? Have you had to address critics?
I really haven't. I mean, like Sophia said, here in Southern California, there's a lot of people who homeschool, and more people over the years are just, I had somebody come and sit down next to me just yesterday saying, I used to not like the idea of homeschool, but now I think it's great. It's just a whole shift in thinking. And it's rare if I get any people who are critical at all, but it's usually because they don't really understand what we're doing. They think that we're just trying to keep the children away from everything. But my opinion is, why would you want your child to be learning in a box? There's an entire world out there. Let's get outside that box. Let's move and do. So when they understand what we're doing, they're like, oh, well, you're doing it right, and everyone else, obviously they just don't understand the movement. But also I've had friends who are teachers in the public school system are jealous of what I do. They're like, you get to dissect sheep brains. They're like, no fair. I would love to do that with my kids, but it's just, they've got their thing that they're supposed to do. They don't get to do all the fun stuff. So.
Yeah. My next question is, well, how do you create community with your children? How do you talked a little bit about learning with other kids and how much fun that is, but how do you create community with your homeschooled children?
You're asking me?
Yes, Heather.
Well, and I have to admit, I haven't done as much as I should have because I've been so involved with doing celebration education that the kids were telling me, Mom, I need friends. It got to that point and I feel bad. But right now, what we're doing is we're getting out. I've made a commitment to get out every Thursday. We go out and do things with friends. Thursday mornings we've been going on hikes, which have been wonderful, especially in the Southern California winter. The weather's been perfect and the hills are gorgeous. And so we've been hiking a lot, and with about 4 or 5 other families that will come with us. And then we do other activities like game day and book to movie club and those sort of things that I'm happy to have been able to get together with these other families to have, because sometimes it's harder to find groups that have the teens. And so I feel very fortunate that we've got that.
Building community has been one of our focuses as we travel, and that's become really important as my son moves through his teen years. And so, yeah, I think it's critical. And I think also building community with just fun, you know, just having fun really does support learning.
Yes.
It does. And let's move over to Redonda real fast. And Redonda, can I ask you the same question about building community? What do you do to build community through the homeschooling process?
Sure. For me, one of the reasons I started Home Educators Network of Central Florida was because just that networking within the community. I'm lucky, I'm in Orlando, Florida, and there are a ton of opportunities for homeschoolers if we just tap into those. We have, you know, art museums, SeaWorld, all of these things that they will work with us. You know, I've talked to representatives from all of these places that are willing to work with us and create things for us. So building the community within the community, it has been a big thing for me as well. And when I started our actual brick and mortar, I've only had our enrichment center since 2013. So I'm kind of proud of it. But our local school contacted me, as a matter of fact, and said, hey, we've got all this excess curricula and all this excess stuff. Do you guys want it? And I said, sure. So now I'm able to do this great lending library. So for me, creating the community is about going out into the community and pulling people in and talking to vendors and saying, hey, we've got this group of folks over here. Most of them are, you know, single income because some, you know, they're either single parents like myself, or one parent decides to stay home and teach the kids. So, you know, can you offer us discounts? Because we're this big group of folks that will go out into the community and, you know, advertise for you. And I found that they do. They're willing to do these things for us. So for me, creating community for my daughter has been reaching out to the community, and also through extracurricular activities. She's in karate, and like I said, she's part of the symphony youth orchestra. So those things also help create community for her. So she has friends that are not homeschooled through those avenues as well.
And do you think it's important for children, teens, homeschooled teens to branch out and have friends of all different walks of life? Or do you think it's important to segregate like they do in schools and keep, you know, 10-year-olds with 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds with 12-year-olds? What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think it's a good idea to segregate at all. I think it's great that they're out in the community. My daughter and I both volunteer with a local wildlife rehab center. She's on the revenue committee meeting. It's her and a bunch of adults, but they ask her opinion because a lot of the activities that we do are geared towards the kids. We're doing like an Easter egg hunt coming up for Easter and things like that. So they're asking her opinion on these things. So she's working with adults that are asking her opinion. She also she plays gigs. She does fundraisers and things like that through her music. So a lot of the people that she's interacting with are adults. Some of her very good friends are much, much younger than her. So I think it's important to learn from all aspects of the community, from all ages. We also make cards for the nursing home and deliver them during the holidays and things like that. So she's getting to interact with those folks as well.
And that actually leads me into my next question. Because we're home educating our children, it leaves a little bit more free time for our children to do other things. And you talked about extracurricular activities. What I want to talk about is service. Is this something you just mentioned? You know, you write letters and bring them to the hospitals. Is the element of service a part of your child's education?
Absolutely. It's a big part, because I think learning to be part of the community means being a part of the community, giving back to that community. Like I said, we volunteer at the Wildlife Rehab Center, and that is, a lot of that's very hands-on. A lot of it's dirty work. A lot of it's hot. You know, we build things for the Wildlife Center and things like that. And some of it's just, you know, it's not fun work, but she loves doing it because she knows she's helping the community. And some of it is very fun. She gets to, you know, interact with the animals and things like that. But it's all about giving back to that community. And I think that's important to grow not only their brains, but, you know, their hearts as well.
Beautiful. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. And Sophia, is that something that you can address as well, the service aspect and giving back to community? Is that something that's part of your children's experience?
Absolutely. That's a big part of our curriculum, and what we're teaching the kids to do actually surrounds itself with giving and looking after others. So we've participated in a handful of different things. Our homeschool group, we do a Valentine's Day party where after the Valentine's Day, for our group, we will take Valentine's to the senior center. We go to the senior center at Christmas time and sing carols. So that's been a fun outreach. There's also Meals for Haiti that we participate in. One of the families in our homeschool group gets a huge truck, and they provide hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meals get packed as part of the organization. And that's really neat to go to the plant and pack and see those meals get shipped off. My oldest son is interested in police work. So he's a part of a program here in our community, Sheriff's Explorers, where they are serving the community from everything from prescription drug collection to composting. He does everything. He's at parades and events, and he's definitely serving the community. And that's been really a neat thing for us to watch, because it's something that he wants to do long term, and he's doing it as a kid. So I get excited for parents. There's the same program, if anybody's listening, there's the same program for firefighters, Coast Guard. If you're interested in forensics, CSI, it's called the Explorers Program, and it's great. It's great. It's a great way for the kids to be actually getting training for their future. So you may be at home homeschooling, or even if you're in a traditional brick and mortar school, it's still a really neat opportunity to be involved with your community and be getting trained for your future, which is incredible. That's what I didn't feel like I was getting in high school. I didn't feel like I was getting any closer to my long-term goal. Whereas when I see my kids doing things that are actually going to facilitate their career, as well as he is actually serving the community in a big way. So it's been really neat. And
Yeah.
also, actually, I'll even piggyback onto what you guys were talking about before, which was the socialization. I think when I first joined our homeschool group, we had a smaller homeschool group at the time, and we did co-op classes, and it was like the one-room schoolroom. We had all ages, so you might be 4 tagging along with your brothers and sisters up to high school, and participating in things from, cooking classes and language classes and history classes to a big drama production, which we do every year. We're still a part of that. Our school's grown a bit, and we've actually grown and shrunk over the years. Families come and go, but that's been really neat to see the ages participating and helping the younger ones, and the younger ones look up to the older ones, and they have these role models and these leaders that are it's been fantastic to see that. I love that.
I love that too. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Awesome. Awesome. And I hope to meet your kids at some point.
You will.
Okay. Let's jump over to Heather next. And Heather, let's talk a little bit about the socialization and moving back into community and the ability to incorporate service as part of your child's education.
Well, I don't facilitate it myself, but both my boys are in scouting. They're Boy Scouts, and so that's service is part of that organization. So they do it with their troops, and so I let that one go. They got that. With Celebration Education, if we're working to one day have a full-time program, 5 days a week, which is not exactly homeschooling anymore, but for, people could come and go, take whatever classes they want. But for the full-time students, we would definitely integrate service into the curriculum. But for now, I'm actually not facilitating it myself.
That's okay.
I know I can't do everything.
No, you can't. And I think it takes a village. And I think Redonda, you said you saw the village and you want to create your own village that actually facilitates in a loving way that matches your vision of education.
Absolutely.
Ladies, we are going to take a 5-minute break. And we'll continue this conversation after the little clip shows. So, Biggie, we're ready for you to roll the clip, and we'll be back.
sponsored by The Adventures of Prince Larry. Okay, so you hear the word homeschooler, and you probably think of a really sheltered, socially awkward kid. Guys, you're not gonna believe this. I saw Mark and Lucy kissing last night.
No way.
What is kissing? It's like where you and another person put your lips together. Why would you do that? You know what, guys? Let's just go play Minecraft. I got my own server. You know, the kind of kid who has really strict and overbearing parents.
Toy Story? What have I told you about watching R-rated movies?
But Dad, Toy Story isn't rated R, it's rated J.
Toys that come to life? Black magic! You think I'm stupid? That's from the devil!
Man, all those homeschoolers are really weird, right? Except we're not. Yeah, I'm in college now, but I used to be homeschooled, and I feel like I had a pretty decently normal childhood. We did one of these videos a couple years ago, but here are 7 more lies about homeschooling. Debunked. Number 1, homeschoolers are brainwashed. A lot of people seem to think that homeschooling is like a really scary cult or something. Everything here is good, okay? Our home is a safe place, but everything out there is evil, it's wrong, except for church, okay? But you wear this on your way to church so that you keep the devil off of you. No, it's not really like that. For a lot of kids, the freedom that homeschooling affords them actually encourages critical thought. Number 2, all homeschooling parents are really strict. No freedom, no grace, no nothing.
I told you to be home by 4:30. It's 4:31.
I'm really sorry, Dad.
That is the last time I ever let you out in the backyard.
I can count on like one hand the number of parents I've ever met that have ever been like that. Actually, most homeschooling parents that I know are pretty reasonable people who have pretty good relationships with their kids. Number 3, homeschoolers are a bunch of rednecks. Yep, we all live out in the country where there are no schools anyway, so we're forced to be homeschooled. Pa, when can we go fishing? Well, did you do your pluses and minuses? Yes, Pa. How about your timeses and divided bys? Of course, Pa. Well, son, it sounds like you earned yourself a trip to the old fishing hole. Yeah. Come on, go grab your mother and your cousin and no one else because we only got room in the truck for the 3 of us. I may live in the South, but I'm not a redneck, and neither are most other people that live in the South. It's an unfortunate stereotype that we're working to end. Number 4, homeschoolers are a bunch of hippies, bruh. Some people take it to the other extreme and assume that the only ones who homeschool are hippies who live in communes. Mother, I finished my test.
Sweetheart, remember, we call them progress assessments. Now, how do you feel about how you did?
I feel really good.
Well, then give yourself a gold star. Now let's go get you an organic, gluten-free treat.
Sweetened with agave nectar?
Of course, honey.
Yeah, this isn't true either. Actually, most homeschooling families vote Republican. That's a stereotype that's actually true. Number 5, homeschoolers are uneducated. Nope, check the studies. Homeschoolers are actually really intelligent. Number 6, homeschoolers are pretentious know-it-alls. This goes along with just how unadjusted homeschoolers are. All they do is sit at home all day and learn things, and that makes them snooty. Wow, did you see Shark Tank last night? I love that show. My family doesn't believe in TVs. I'm too busy with my nose in my studies while your brain is turning to mush, and I pray that you never have children. That's really harsh. Are you still there? Not true. And number 7, homeschoolers judge you for not being homeschooled. People assume that homeschooling families think of themselves as a different class of citizen. Well, I mean, I take the time to invest in my child's life, but I understand there's way more important things than your own flesh and blood. I'm sure there are some jerks like that, but the vast majority of homeschooling families, honestly, they don't think that way, and they just want to be left alone. So they don't really care what you're doing as long as you don't mind what they're doing. Hi, are you homeschooled like me?
Nope, go to public school.
What the heck, are you stupid?
No, I just go to public school.
You mean that you trust the state with your precious education? Are you a Nazi?
What?
Everybody, member of the Third Reich right here. And there you go. That's 7 more lies about homeschooling debunked. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go play some Minecraft. Yeah, that one is true.
And we're back. The reason why we showed that clip is because there really are misconceptions about homeschooling and the home educated movement. And I think we actually addressed one of them talking about socialization, but I actually don't want to focus on what is, what the misconceptions are and what's, what people think is not working. I want to talk about what is working in the homeschooling experience. And I've got 3 wonderful moms here, 4 if you include me, that are involved in the homeschooling movement. And I know we've all experienced these incredible aha moments that remind us that this is working, that our children are learning so much. And so I want to bring this question to the panel. Let's start off with Sophia. Sophia, why don't you share with us a couple of your aha moments where you realized that this was really the best choice for you and your family and that your children are thriving and learning?
Oh, this is a great question, Lainey. I really like the spin of what's the positive. And I can tell you that, this could be the question that chokes me up and gets me emotional. But when I started out on my homeschooling journey, I really wasn't sure that it would work, but I was just excited to try it. And as the years have rolled on and we are getting, closer to one finish line, we've got one high schooler, so we're closing in on one student. And I think about what we have accomplished and achieved in this period of time, because financially we've had a really hard time. By the world's standards, I should go to work. Like, me being at home and homeschooling my children is ridiculous. We live in Southern California where prices are very high and things are very expensive. And we had to downsize a lot in order for me to stay at home with my kids. And my kids and I and my husband have been through the ideas of, we've prayed over it and questioned, should we be doing this or should I go get a job? Because we could have probably more things and more opportunities if the kids were in school. Then we could live in a bigger house. We could probably have a newer car. And those are things that for us, we looked at it and the aha moment is, no, we shouldn't. We're really doing a great thing. Our experience with our kids and what we're growing into them and what they're getting out of this experience is lifelong for them. A car is going to end up used and sold, but these kids are not. They are our investment. So we could be investing in a house and having things, or we could be investing in our kids, and they are the most special part of my life ever. Nothing's going to be more important. So there's not a house on the market that I would trade home educating my kids for, so that we could get out of this, small little situation that we're in to have that, because it's not a trade-off. So the aha is just, we love what we're doing and we love what we're pouring in. A good friend of ours said, your investment's not your house, it's your kids.
Yeah, and what a legacy you're leaving too. I tell Miro all the time that we've chosen, I don't tell him, in fact, we share this all the time, that we value our experiences instead of collecting things. We collect experiences together, and that works for our family. And I see that it's the same reasoning, the same feeling, the same emotions with you and your family. You're leaving a legacy that's beautiful. I'm so thrilled to know you, Sophia. That's really beautiful. Thank you.
I think it's neat that we can be living on literally the other side of the equator from each other and be having the same experience through homeschooling. That's pretty neat too.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is happening all over the world.
Perfect. And let's move on actually to Heather. Can I ask you to share some of the aha moments that you've experienced?
I've got a couple from recent. Just yesterday, my son came home. He was with another friend, this friend who goes to school, and my son is 13. And he mentioned, I don't know what the conversation was about, but he said that his friend didn't know what indigo is. And my son was just completely taken aback that his friend had never heard of indigo. And my son Harrison was like, well, from the rainbow, from Roy G. Biv. And he was just trying to jog his memory, and the kid was just not having any of it. And so Harrison he was just, he's like, but he goes to school, you know? I mean, because I think my son sometimes feels like he's missing out because he's not sitting in a classroom with a teacher, you know? And I didn't teach him Roy G. Biv. I didn't teach him Rainbow. I didn't teach him Indigo. These are things that he learned on his own. But then he was just surprised, and I guess it felt good to him to know that he knows some science that his school going kid did not. So that was, at least for him, it was his affirmation. Another time too was when we were at our center and we were going from feeding the chickens over to feeding the lamb and goat. This kid, this boy, he was just skipping alongside me, and he said, "This is the best school ever," you know. And I just feel like, okay, I'm doing something right. I'm doing what I need to be doing, because those are exact words that when I wrote down my school plan, those are the words that I wanted to hear, and I heard them. So.
That's an incredible affirmation. I'm so thrilled. Awesome. Very good, Heather. Thank you for sharing that. And
Sure.
Redonda, I want to ask you the same question. Go ahead and share with us some of those fabulous aha moments that reaffirm that you're on the right path with you and your daughter.
Sure. For me, it's every day. I mean, there's just little aha moments every day, but some of the big ones are probably watching her walk out on stage at our Performing Arts Center, where I have seen, famous people perform, and just, there's my daughter, she's performing on this same stage because she is doing what she's passionate about. So that's one of the aha moments. Just watching her thrive in the things that she enjoys doing is definitely an aha moment. As far as, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because I had an aha moment with when I started the center, that my enrichment center. Here I am with the keys to this empty office going, what do I do next? And suddenly all of these things just fell into place. I had a friend who was moving and had this great bookshelf that fit perfectly in there to store all our curricula. I met this woman, ironically, from a yard sale site, who was a retiring science teacher, and she sold me this amazing amount of stuff, including like fake body parts and test tubes and all this curricula, and a brain and all of these things that I can use with science, microscopes and all of this stuff for a ridiculously low price. She was just there. And just everything, as soon as I got that key in my hand, everything started falling into place, and I started finding all of the things that I needed to build what it was. And, just having the students come in, and like Heather was saying, just seeing them and seeing my daughter just every day is an aha moment for me.
And it's funny, I noticed that things always do just fall into place, don't they? Once you're clear about what the passion is. I mean, you created this learning center based on your vision and your passion. And actually, why don't you just explain to us and to our audience what brought you to that place?
Well, for me, it was just seeing that there was a need to kind of bridge the gap, because I know a lot of people want a little bit more structure, but the co-ops weren't really cutting it, because the moms were teaching, and some of the moms have degrees in these areas or are experts in the field, but some of them weren't. And we actually have a few centers in Central Florida, but they weren't being run by homeschoolers. They were being run by, they're running homeschool programs, but their main focus was aftercare, after school. And they weren't being run by homeschoolers. My daughter participated in one of those, and it just wasn't working for us. It just didn't have the same feel and the same vision. And I kept thinking, somebody should do this or that. Somebody should do, and I looked in the mirror one day and went, oh yeah, hello, I'm somebody. So I decided that, this is what I'm going to do. And I just wanted it to be a place for the kids to have a say in their education, for the parents to have a say in their education, and to bring the community in to help build that education for the kids, and communicate with the community and bring them in. It was also, like I said, because I felt like I couldn't, especially as my daughter progresses into higher math and things like that, I'm not sure that I can really adequately provide for her. So providing that space for her to have those instructors come in was really important for me.
And your center doesn't, it's not compulsory. It's based on the interest of the kids. So, and the interest of is it also the goals of the parents?
Yes, yes. They can contact me, and I can set up whatever classes that they desire to have. I have some set up already. We have foreign language, math, things like that. It is not compulsory. You can pick and choose how you want to come. Some people come for the entire 8-week program that we do each session, but otherwise you can come what I call a la carte and just come when it's comfortable for you.
I was just thinking of when you asked about the aha moments, and one of our great aha moments just happened recently. My children love to cook, and they're constantly making something in the kitchen. And the other night we were watching Food Channel, and there was something fantastic that they were making. It was a kids show, and they were making pâté de choux. And I said to my kids, let's make that tomorrow morning. And we woke up in the morning and they made these fantastic French pastries that rival anything. And I was so pleased to see us just execute something on the fly. And I think that those are the aha moments too, when, we decide that we don't feel like doing school today. We're going to hop in the car and we're going to drive to Huntington Gardens, or we're going to go to the Santa Monica Pier or Venice Beach, or just something to do something different to supplement what we are doing at home. And there's always something that you can do, whether it's go to the coast and, dig for creatures in the rocks at the beach, or go to the mountains and take a hike. Those are aha moments too, that do happen on a daily basis when you just say, you know what, I don't need to be inside these four walls today. We can go do something outside, create something different. I think that's a definite gift of homeschooling, is that we just have that opportunity to change and shift things. I've had a lot of moms come to me and they say, oh, it's so hard, and I think I'm going to give up, and I just don't think that this is working for our family, and I'm not doing as much as they're doing in the public school system, and my kids aren't in the same place, and they should be doing more. And it's like, you know what? You have the power to change that. You're the boss of what you're doing. So pick a different curriculum. I see a lot of times, and I don't know about the other moms on the panel, but I see a lot of times women that I know that are homeschooling that are doing an exorbitant amount of schooling. Their kids are just weighted down, and there's so much school that's happening, and so much, and a lot of it's great, whether it's we're taking music and we're taking sports and we're doing this and we're doing that. They're doing a lot, but they're also exhausted and worn out. And we decided last year we're going to cut back. We're going to do a very simple curriculum. We're going to have some core subjects, but we're going to have days off during the week so that we can take field trips, so that we can have some freedom. This has been our best year yet, and it is a learning curve, and I know you get better as you go along. By the time I graduate my kids, I'm going to be a great homeschool mom for anyone that needs me. But in the time being, it's learn as you go. And I definitely think this year my motto is less is more. We're getting more out of doing less. Watching the Food Network and saying, hey, we're going to make French pastries tomorrow. That was an aha moment. That was great.
I just want to piggyback on something you said. You had an experience with someone who said, oh, well, they're not getting the same thing as they would in public school. That's one of the misconceptions that I think that a lot of people have, is that homeschoolers are isolated and they're not getting those things. One of the things that I hear a lot is, oh, well, what about dances? Well, we put on dances. We have an awesome DJ. We have a photographer. We have the whole 9 yards. Our spring dance is coming up. It's our second annual spring dance. The kids have a great time. So I think one of the misconceptions that people have is that the public school system, they're not getting the same things as kids in public school. Well, they don't get to do the dances. They don't get to do all of these things, and they do. And that goes back to what we were talking about, creating that community. How do the public school dances happen? A group of teachers get together and they find a venue and they create this dance. That's exactly how it happens for us.
And if I can even jump in onto that, if you are in the community and you're socializing, your kids do get invited to the high school prom at the local public school. I've seen that happen a lot, where our kids in our homeschool community are being invited to participate in the school dances. And like you said, I do love it when we have homeschool groups that do those dances and those same things. That's fantastic. I'm glad your group does that.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, for me, it was better than any dance that I did in high school because we put it together. We've got, like I said, we've got a DJ, he's got the lights, he's got everything. And it's just as quality as any public school dance. I think that's a misconception too, is that, oh, well, it's just, 2 or 3 students. No, we had like 20, 30 kids at least and a DJ. And I mean, it was great. It was fantastic. So I think that goes back to the misconceptions of, well, they're not getting what they would get in public school. Well, what about PE and things like that? And, our kids are getting those things too. My daughter is an orange belt in karate. She just started recently. She's getting that physical education. We have a rock climbing place near us that the kids love to go to. They had surfboard lessons. They learned to surf. So these are things that, in my opinion, they're not getting in public school. So I definitely think that we can definitely provide that community for our kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I don't know about, and Sophia, you've mentioned this a couple of times. You've talked about co-ops because I wasn't a homeschool parent. In the United States, and I only started my homeschooling journey with my son when we started traveling 6 years ago, and yeah, we're still traveling. I don't know what a co-op is. How does it work?
Well, there's different ways to do it. The only ways that I know how to do it in my community, we have, it's a pool of parents, and they're organized. I don't know who starts the organization. I think like Redonda and Heather are doing. It's just somebody that's stepping up in the community. In my case, one of them, I was invited into this co-op through a group of women that I knew, and basically, in some cases, it's the moms teaching the classes. So you're cooperating with one another. And we've taught everything from cooking and dressmaking and sign language. And, we do our play, and it's a co-op. So we do things like dances. We actually haven't done a great dance yet. That's on our list. But those are things that you can pretty much do whatever you want to do, whatever your group feels there's a need for. Our kids were all just starting to get into the high school age. So our high school community is growing, and that's where we actually had our first graduation a couple years ago. And, we did like the mock graduation cap and gown and the whole 9 yards, and that's been very fun. But the co-op is basically just all the mothers pulling together and fathers pulling together and determining what the needs are and then facilitating it. And for the most part, it's done within our group. Now that things are growing and homeschooling is becoming so popular, we have actually hired in teachers. We've brought people in to teach at our co-ops. So that's kind of a new trend, I would say, that's happening. The other organization that I'm a part of is just that. It's lots of pulled together, amazing teachers with wonderful backgrounds that are honestly far more educated than I am, and they do a fantastic job. And those are 1 or 2 days a week. Our other co-op is 1 day a week. This one's 1 and 2 days a week. It's banquet style. You pull into whatever you want. You want 2 classes or 12, it's up to you. So that's been a really neat thing because it does offer a big variety of brick and mortar classroom style group, so the kids are having all that interaction. I often laugh. My mother will say to me that our family proves the socialization thing is just a fallacy and that it's an antiquated argument because we have so much to do, so many activities. The kids have too many friends. There's always something we're invited to. We can't do it all. So honestly, the co-op's been great for socialization and it's been good for pick and choose. Couple years I haven't done the co-op because I had my own thing that I was doing and it was too much for us. So, it's just a great opportunity for more people to get involved and fit the needs of the homeschool group as a whole.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I wish I had that experience when Mira was growing up, but I just didn't go there. It just wasn't part of our experience in Los Angeles. But it sounds incredible, and I suspect there's these co-ops throughout the country, throughout the United States. This really is a United States-based panel, and actually we're putting together a panel to do homeschooling panel from Europe. So that'll be coming up in a future show. I'm not sure when as of yet. But it's interesting because in Europe, there's a lot of different legal issues where homeschooling is not legal in many, many, many countries. And so that's not a challenge in the United States. So I'm actually really, really glad to hear of all of these positive self-organizing units that help support this movement. And speaking of which, let's move over to Heather. And Heather, would you tell us a little bit about your project and how it functions, how it operates, and what it looks like from the inside?
Sure. Well, like I said, it's thematic. So we have a theme for every year, and then we break it down to a topic for each week, and then we have, I don't know, it seems like I'm saying the stuff I've already said, but so then we have the teachers in the various areas, and that they teach groups in their area, and each week is a different topic, and we do several school subjects in each written into each topic. And so it's a lot of fun. And so the kids will come once a week and they do these activities. It's basically like introducing the topics to the children. It's not a thorough going over. It's not, making sure that they learn every little bit about the topic, but it's introducing the topic in a fun way. And then from there, the hope is that they will have an appreciation for that topic, and they may want to continue to learn about it. They have the option of doing what I call fireworks. It's like homework, but it's more of lighting a fire kind of work. So fireworks, where they can pick and choose their activities that they will do follow up on the topic. And so they get to choose it themselves. It's going to be something that, is that they identify with, that's within their intelligence, that they're interested in, and that's something that's at their level, that they're ready for. Children like to choose something that's, just a little bit of a stretch, where it's not too hard, or it's not too baby stuff. It's right there where they're pulling in something new that they're going to enjoy. So so that's what we do. It's a lot about inspiring the children to want to just be involved in doing more things. The classes as well as the field trips, all, just making it exciting. Learning is an adventure is what we like to do.
Yeah, and when you and I spoke before the show, we really connected on many levels, because what we're doing is so similar in terms of the learning. I mean, it's immersive learning, and it sounds to me like you don't divide the lessons up by subject matter. When you were talking about the Pacific Ocean, well, yeah, that's a little bit of marine biology, that's a little bit of earth sciences, is a little bit of, biology, all these different things combined, but you don't divide
right
the actual thing into subjects.
Exactly. Because the reason why, if you were to have a cake and eat it by the ingredients, it is not very tasty. We'd much rather mix it all together and make this beautiful thing that we're going to want to eat. And that's what we do when we put all the subjects together. It becomes this very delicious meal of learning. So that's why, yeah, they may not even notice when they're in one subject or another. We're just exploring.
That's so awesome. And you use the word, I'm going to use that analogy, by the way,
okay.
And I will to Heather. But you used the word several times, exploring, when you talk about learning. You talk about play and exploring. Mm-hmm. What age group are you targeting with your program? And do you think that play and exploring spans all ages, or what's your thoughts on that?
I do. I think play and exploring expands all ages, including adults. We love it. But the program that I write is basically more for 6 to 11-year-olds, because they haven't been exposed to a lot of stuff. And I just kind of feel like, throw it all out there. You never know what a kid's going to pick up on and want to, really delve into more on their own, or what's going to resonate with them. So it's just a way of introducing a whole bunch of great stuff to the kids that they get to play with, they get to experiment with. They might want to do more. They might say, I never want to touch that again, and that's what we're trying to do. But as kids get older, they don't need to be introduced to so much. They know more what they want. They're going to be seeking after the things on their own. They're going to be pulling resources on their own, and they don't need to be given so much. So that's why I'm a lot more hands off with my boys at this point. But I wanted to share another thing that's fun to share. My husband read the book Agony and Ecstasy about Michelangelo one time, and in the book he shared with me. Michelangelo one time was working on sculpture, and a friend of his came up and said, let's go hunt. The guys are getting together, we're going to go hunting, let's go. And Michelangelo's like, no thanks, I'm not interested, I'm working on this thing right now. And the guy's like, come on, you gotta go, everyone's doing it. And he's like, you know what, for me, making this sculpture is the excitement of the hunt. And so my husband shared that with me because of my philosophy with education. That's what learning is. It's the excitement of the hunt. It's going out for it's making it exciting. It's an adventure. It's seeking and drawing in. And it's just, it just turns into something that it's part of living and part of life. And it's all exciting. It just brings everything to a great higher level.
Yeah, amazing. So if you were speaking to another parent who did not have access to your program, but they wanted to incorporate the exploration and the play and the excitement into their children's learning, what would you say to them?
Oh gosh, I don't know, because what I do is so much work. I mean, I honestly spend a lot of time just in the prep. And I know learning does not need to be complicated. It can be very simple. It can be just as a matter of fact of turning on a piece of classical music and then sitting down and listening to it, and just relaxing. But I guess I make it complicated on my end so it's easier on the students. I just do so much prep work. But what I would say is, maybe pick a theme, pick something that the children would like. I've been dying to do a whole theme on Phineas and Ferb. What if each of the Phineas and Ferb episodes, you do some, follow that. If they go to a different country or they're, doing a levitation or, whatever that they can explore and learn from, something else that let that inspire your learning and make it your theme, and just kind of take off from there. Be sure to include the field trips. Just make it alive as possible.
I love that. And I want to ask everybody on the panel, would you like to share some of your experiences doing field trips with your family, with your kids? Anybody? Heather?
Oh, well, Sophia's ready.
Okay, I think we switched over. There we go. Yeah, with field trips, I just think that we try to splice in as many as we can, depending on what we're studying at the time. We're doing U.S. history this year, so our big goal, and I may be stopping in on your houses as I drive across the country, we're hoping to hop in the car about the middle of May and just take off, get the tires rotated and get an oil change. And we're going to try to see all of the historical sites of the United States of America that we've been studying this year. So I definitely think field tripping is a great thing to do, whether you're going to a local play, whether you're hearing local musicians in a park. There's just so much to learn about the communities around us. I mean, Lainey, you know this better than anybody. You're traveling and doing it through the world. So I think that is, our homeschool dream. Probably all the moms on the panel would like to be doing what Lainey is doing, at least to some extent. I like my bed at home, but I definitely think it's an amazing experience because immersion and hands-on, to me, is the love of learning, and it is what makes it fun. We can read all the facts that we want to read in a book, but I think seeing the Liberty Bell or seeing the Alamo is going to bring it so much more to life than anything else we can do. So I'm big on field trips. I'm big on days off and traveling around and seeing things. So I think that's important.
I would agree. The hands-on learning is super, super important. We do a lot of field trips. I'm a travel agent also, so hopefully we'll get to travel a little bit more than in the past. I'm looking forward to doing that. But a lot of it's just getting out in the community as well. And like I said, I'm in Orlando, so there's a ton of stuff for us to do. We've been to Disney to homeschool. Epcot is a great place to homeschool because they have all of that, really interesting stuff as far as science and things like that are concerned. So we just recently went to SeaWorld and did some of their behind the scenes things, petting a beluga whale. That is so cool. We pet penguins. I actually have I live on a little bit of acreage. We have 3 acres. We have chickens and things like that. But my neighbor actually has kangaroos. So we get to go over there and feed baby kangaroos and things like that. She has lemurs. And of course, also working with Back to Nature, which is the wildlife rehab that we volunteer for, getting the hands on and seeing the enrichment that they do for the animals is really fascinating too, and how the animals need that playtime. We were talking about play. It's interesting that part of what they do with the animals is play. It helps develop their brains. It helps develop their social skills with each other. It helps, everybody thinks, well, animals, it's all instinct. It's not. A lot of that is developed through play. If you watch your pets, cats, and they're crouching and things like that, that's all for, hunting, things like that. It's play. They jump and play with each other, but it's all about learning as well, and learning what they need to be an adult creature. So that hands-on learning is super duper important. And just going out, just finding what's in your community. I'll share something that I think is really important, because when my daughter was young, we went to watch the Philharmonic, and she said, I want to do that someday. So now seeing her on stage, on the very same stage where they play, is that, again, going back to aha moments. Wow. And all of that because it was a field trip. I wanted to expose her to classical music, and there she is now doing it herself. So it's very important, I think, to get out there in the community and see what's available.
That made me think of something when you're talking about the different things in the community. I realize one of the things that's important to tell people that are considering homeschooling is how willing the community is to jump on board and piggyback. We took the kids into Chinatown a couple months back, and it was a quiet day in Chinatown because it's the middle of the week and it's just not a busy place to be that day. And the gentleman behind the cash register invited my kids to come behind the cash register and do the entire transaction. They ran credit cards. He allowed them to be in his cash register making change. So the community as a whole, when they see and they hear, if you call in advance to make a plan to go somewhere and you let them know you're a homeschool group, we've had amazing teaching, and we are sometimes in places at an odd hour of day when maybe other field trips are not happening. So just be encouraged that you can always find trips and things to do, and the community seems to be very open to it. Whether it's whether you're having lunch at a restaurant and you say, hey, we're homeschoolers, you mind showing us your kitchen? They'll show you their kitchen. They really will. There's a lot of things that will happen when you just open up your mouth and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Is there anything you can teach my kids today? Man, people love to share. So it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're homeschooling.
Yeah, I wanted to add in, there's a Dr. Peter Gray writes a lot about the value of play and how it contributes to learning. So if anybody's interested in pursuing that as a line of thought, he authors articles in Psychology Today all the time, and he speaks at a lot of the conferences. He's an amazing lecturer. So I would recommend, if anybody's interested in pursuing more information about the virtues of play and how it relates to learning, please Google him and read his writing. And then one of the other things that you said, Sophia, was you talked about immersion through field trips, and that's how this conversation started. We're actually having another panel next week, and we're talking about world schooling, but it's taking the homeschooling and traveling and having a perpetual field trip, but we're taking all of the things that you're doing as homeschoolers and immersing ourselves in these new experiences, and it really lights you up. It keeps you, I mean, you're talking about the neural pathways. That's what's lit up because you're completely present. You're having this joint experience with your child. You're inspired because it's new stimulus, and I think that's what you get through the field trips that you're talking about. And I think it's wonderful that you guys are doing it in your home countries, because not everybody likes to travel like us. So that's a great thing. I want to switch gears just a little bit, and I want to talk to this panel about the future. I want to ask you about what college or university might look like to your children, and if there are things that you need to do in order to prepare them to go into a formal situation. I actually want to start this with Redonda, and then we'll jump over to Sophia, and then of course Heather.
Yeah, we've already started looking into colleges. My daughter definitely wants to be a music major, so I actually started contacting the local colleges to get tours and things like that, and they're very open to doing that. My daughter is 14 right now, but we're thinking of doing some early enrollment so that she can get some credits under her belt before she technically graduates high school. And with a music degree, that's one of the reasons I contacted the colleges, is to find out exactly what we need. What do I need to be doing? What hoops do I need to jump through in order to get into the colleges that she's looking at? And we have just started being a little more diligent as far as the keeping of records and things like that, just making sure that I have all of those things so that if I need a transcript, I can provide that to the college. Well, this is what we learned. You know, she's very into science. So a lot of this stuff we've already done. A lot of the stuff that's considered high school level science, I've looked at and I said, well, we've done that, but I can go back and keep records of that so that she can get credit for it. The other thing we're looking at doing is possibly CLEPing a lot of classes. The CLEP test is about $80. You can they tell you exactly what you need to know for the CLEP test. So what I am planning on doing is basing our curricula on what you need to know for the CLEP test, then letting my daughter go and take the CLEP. If she passes it, great. If she doesn't, there's no penalty. The colleges don't know whether you've taken it or not. If you pass it, you've got CLEP credit for that class and don't have to take it. So that's pretty much been our goal. And again, that's going to change a little bit as we find out more what she needs to do to get into some of these schools. But we've already started touring some of the colleges.
Wow, and she's, like you said, just 14, just turned 14. Is college, university a path that she's interested in going down on her own? I mean, is that, or is this mom's idea? You want your daughter to go to university?
No, that's definitely something she decided for herself. She is definitely going into a career in music. She knows that she can probably make more as an instructor with a college degree, also going into performance, maybe eventually being in the orchestra. You know, they look at things like that as well. And just having that under her belt so that she can move forward with her career goals as a musician.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Redonda. And Sophia, did you have something to add to that? How are you preparing your children, or how are they getting prepared for the future?
First of all, Lainey, shame on you for asking Redonda if she's leading her child, because as homeschool parents, we are raising our kids to make their own decisions, and they are all so strong-willed and strong-minded. So yeah, I'm sure whatever goal we set out on, because I did have goals. I thought, okay, all of my children are going to be and Lainey, you may or may not be familiar with the A to G and the AP classes, which is the high standard so that you can get into university when you graduate high school. So of course, all of my children were going to have these very high academic schedules and challenges, and they were going to be A+ students because they're homeschoolers. And, you know, I got thrown some curves along the way. And as I invested time, when my son got closer to high school, I started really figuring out this A to G and AP class strategies and what we were going to do. And the whole entire bucket got turned upside down because it really wasn't for him and it wasn't his nature and it wasn't wise for me to have that plan for him. So what happens is you start to rework things as you learn. So for one thing, in the States, we can, if you're in high school, you can sign up for your local JC, at least in the state of California. Go to your local JCs and start having your children take some of their courses when you feel it's the right timing. So you can take an algebra class, you can take something and get that off your plate so that those classes are done if you're going to pursue a college career. So you're getting high school credit for it, you're also getting college credit for it, and you're speeding along a little bit faster for that. The other thing that's important to know, in the States right now, we're having very, very, very high college tuitions. So for people that have their students in high school, one of the things that's wise to do is consider a JC, because in most of our states, we have some pretty good JCs in our local communities. And 2 years at that JC will cut 2 years off your 4 years in college, and you'll pay less tuition. Not to mention the fact that if you enroll in a JC, your high school scores are automatically not really what the next institution is going to look at. They're going to look at your JC scores. So you may as well save the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and not have your child leave school with an enormous debt. So that's just one of the things we've kind of investigated. And I just think it's, it's really important for us to not be sucked into the whole idea that everybody's got to go to a 4-year and have these, big degrees behind their belt, because sometimes they leave school with a lot of debt. And that's really not where I want my kids to start out in life. I don't want them to be 25, 26 with $100,000 worth of debt. So I think that's an important thing to look at.
Yeah, you're really talking about some reality there. Just for those that are listening that may not know what Sophie is talking about, a JC means junior college, and those are 2-year colleges. Yes, Nero. And so, yes. As my son walks up, I totally lost my train of thought. So, yeah. Heather, let's move on to you and talk about a little bit about what you're doing to prepare your children for their futures.
All right. Well, I do have 2 grown kids at this point. So, which both of them started going to the junior college when they were interested, and they mostly took personal interest classes, things that they wanted to learn more about. For one of them, it was art. The other was psychology. They wanted to learn more about. And we were only allowed to take 2 concurrent enrollment classes at a time. Whereas my daughter, after taking a semester of that, she's like, that's not enough. I need to take a full schedule. And so I graduated her so then she could go on and it was funny because it was actually easier to graduate and let her go take a full schedule than it was to prove to them that this is concurrent enrollment. But either way, that's what my kids, my older kids did. They both wanted to start take a few college classes when they were still teenagers. And so my one son now is going to university, and my daughter, she took 5 years off to be a mom. That's all she ever wanted to be when she grew up, is just, and I'm always like sitting down to talk to her. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a mom. So she's got the mom thing, and she's been a mom for over 5 years now. And now she's ready to go back, and she's applying for school again. So, but then my boys are at home. My 17-year-old is not interested in taking the classes. I'd be like, look at the classes they got, at the junior college. Look at, but he's not interested. He's happy what he's doing. He's my administrator for our Minecraft classes. We have 6 Minecraft classes each week, and he is in charge of them. And so, it's a lot of work, and he does great work working with the kids. And he has decided that as an adult, he would like to go into the gamification of education, where learning becomes games themselves. And that's a new big industry, so to speak, that's actually going into a lot of public schools because they feel it make it easier learning for the schools. So that's what his interest is in. And to that end, he hasn't chosen a college yet, but we're looking at a program that for one particular college that has a bridge program where he can he takes an online learning for a year and then he can go on to the university campus. And that's the plan right now for him. My 13-year-old, we haven't made a plan yet.
Awesome. Well, I do want to say that these questions are to prompt you to talk about, what your children's choices are. And yes, Sophia, as a parent, we absolutely, each one on this panel, we empower our children, and that's part of the homeschooling process. And every single person on this panel has talked about their children's passions. And I love how every single person has shown different examples of how each of their children that are being homeschooled actually are reaching for their own passions. And that's empowering. Can anybody on this panel talk a little bit about what some of the passions that came out of homeschooling that they didn't expect, that they weren't, for example, if one child was on the path to experience, say, horseback riding, and suddenly they discovered something about anatomy that they really, really loved. Are there any examples of those kinds of accidental passions that were discovered that you can share? And let's start with you, Sophia.
Gosh, I don't think we've had any real big surprises. Probably the only surprise we've had is our youngest, Vinny, wanted to be a veterinarian until he understood how much schooling was involved. So I don't know if that's really been we haven't had a big shift or surprise. I definitely will say that I have learned, this is what the mom learns. The mom learns that you don't direct your children's paths. So if you are guiding them and empowering them, as you said, and leading them towards, where they're destined to go, and you're equipping them along the way, really, I think the path, you see certain things in your children. I have one son that's a warrior that wants to go into the military, wants to do police. Got another son that's the complete opposite of that. He wants to pet puppies. So, you just see what your kids have, and you just, work with their interests and their love. And we haven't had any real surprises. So maybe the other ladies have something like that.
And Redonda, did you have something to add to this?
Sure, I did. My daughter actually was in gymnastics for a while. She was very good. She competed at the national level and won several awards. She was first place in some events and fourth all around nationally. And she was very passionate about that for a while. She had a very bad experience with a coach and kind of lost her energy in that. And that's when she picked up the viola. And that has since been her passion. So that was, kind of a big surprise. I encouraged her in both, of course. And in a lot of ways, I'm kind of glad that it went that way, because gymnastics is a shorter career path unless you want to go into coaching. There's only a certain length of time physically that you can do it, whereas music is lifelong. So I was kind of glad for that shift, but it was an interesting shift because she was she was good at what she did. And, she picked up the viola and she happens to be very good at that as well. So that was a shift for us.
That's interesting. I've noticed during our homeschooling, unschooling journey that one thing kind of logically leads to the next. Like, for example, Miro's interest in mythology led him to pursue really reading a ton of literature, and it led him to H.P. Lovecraft. And so, it's not a direct path, but there's definitely some similarities and a tie-in. We found that most of the things that we didn't expect to find interest have come from the field trips or the travel. And I was wondering if anybody else had that kind of experience, because as unschoolers and homeschoolers, we totally support our children's passions. But when we're exposed to something that we're not possibly passionate about, it may spawn a new interest that never, would have had the opportunity to raise their, interest had we only pursued interest and passions. So that's kind of what I was getting at. Do you have any examples or any thoughts about that? Anybody on the panel?
All right, I'll jump in on this one. So it did come as a huge surprise to me that my son loved Chinatown. So, that was something we just threw a dart one day and decided to drive up to Los Angeles and hit Alvera Street and Chinatown. And he loved it so much. He was 7 years old, and we found ourselves going back there. That's where he celebrated his birthday party. He had me take a van full of kids to Chinatown. So that was one of those things that I don't think would have normally occurred to me, that my children would love Chinatown, but we still go there now. We'll go there a couple times a year. So yeah, I guess that was kind of a quirky thing to find out we loved. So now we could immerse ourselves a little bit more in that type of culture. We did a fantastic curriculum one year on the Eastern culture. So we studied the Philippines and all of Asia, and I ended up falling in love with it. So it definitely is a good thing to have one little thing as a linchpin into all the other things.
Yeah, that's it. And I think learning is definitely a fluid process. That's what we're learning about learning itself. And Heather, did you have anything you wanted to add to this conversation?
Well, as far as something that surprised us that we learned about, it was not a lot because knowing your kids, you kind of expect certain things and then you see them happen, But there was one time when I don't even remember how it started, but we were interested in LED lights. And we were looking at LED lights everywhere. We were fascinated by LED signs that were multicolored, that have these movements and everything. And one time we were passing by one that's actually on the ground. And so we parked and walked over to the LED sign so we could look up close at the sign and see how do they make the full color pictures on the LED signs. And we were completely surprised that it was only 3 colors of lights that they used. And I think it was red, yellow, and green. So we were confused, and we were discussing, and and the, kind of this thing of learning about LED lights. It lasted for a while, and we saw them on buses, we saw them all over the place, and we were just who would think? But that was something that we were pursuing, and it was kind of a quirky thing that we were learning about.
Wonderful. I think it's pretty incredible. Miro and I actually have been obsessed with Star Trek, and we've learned so much from Star Trek. We have learned to talk about. We've learned about physics. We've learned about engineering. We've learned about what creates a biological life form. There are like all these different discussions and observations and learning that are coming out of just watching a TV series together. And to me, that's incredible.
And don't forget the philosophical things you can discuss from Star Trek as well. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have these incredible conversations. Mm-hmm. We're getting to the end of the hour, and these 2 hours just flew by. All of you ladies are so inspiring, and your experiences are so incredible. So if I'm going to go around to each person on the panel, if you could share with the audience your links, your projects, and anything else that you'd like to say to somebody who's considering homeschooling, and perhaps a word of advice, whatever you'd like to offer to the audience. And Heather, we'll start with you.
Well, so yeah, sharing my links, where if you want to find anything about what we do, it's at celebrationeducation.com. We've got anyone from the country or out of the country can sign up for our Minecraft event. So that's a lot of fun. But if you're local in Southern California, we've got classes in 4 counties, and so you can find those. And what were the other questions? Sorry.
links, and then if there's any piece of advice you'd like to give to somebody considering homeschooling, something you'd like to share from your experience.
Right. Well, if you find your child is in a situation that you're not comfortable with in their school, don't discount homeschooling. It's easier than you think. It's not what you think it is. It's a lot more. There's an entire world out there that they can explore. And there's tons of support, and there's many different ways to approach homeschooling. And when you're learning about it, don't stop when you hear the first one. Talk to somebody who does it differently. Talk to somebody who uses a different curriculum, or unschools or overschools, and find out, learn about it from all angles, and find what you feel would be comfortable for you, because you probably, I think, moms are natural teachers, even if you don't think so. You're comparing yourself to a credentialed teacher in a classroom with 30 children, and that's completely different from you working with your child one-on-one. You know your child. You can address his or her needs. You can feel what and do for them what they need. And the biggest piece of advice I always give is, no matter what you choose in your education, even if it is a regular public school, you're doing the right thing. Because the thing is the number one key to a child's success in school is that the parent is involved. And if you're concerned about your child's education, you're doing what you can to get them what they need, your child is going to succeed. So just be sure that you know what all the options are. When you make your choice, you are making the right choice. Go with it.
Wonderful piece of advice. Thank you, Heather. It was such a pleasure to speak with you here on this panel, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Sure.
Because your project's incredible.
Thanks.
Exciting. And Sophia, let's jump over to you. Go ahead and share with us your projects, your links if you have them, and also share with us any final words that you may have to offer any other homeschooling families that may be considering homeschooling.
I love it. I don't personally have any links. There is a great, one of the co-ops that we participate, Independent Learning Academy, great location if you're in Southern California and you want to plug in. It's a really wonderful place to come to school a couple days a week if you choose. I would say that I'm definitely going to look up Celebration Education, because it just sounds fantastically fun, and the Minecraft classes will be great. And I was listening to Heather and made a little mental note. When you do go to school, one of the things that happens is you might have a teacher that you fall in love with. You might have a teacher that discourages you and it doesn't work out the way that you want it to. The beauty of homeschooling is that as parents, we are always the teacher. So we really do get to know our students, and we get to fall in love with them, and we get to nurture them. And I think that's one of the blessings that we have as homeschool parents, is the continuity with our kids. So even though we might hire in some teachers, and if you find one that really doesn't work for your kid or that's not right, you can get rid of that person. But at the same time, we can find great teachers and work that in long term, because we are with our students more than 1 year if we choose to be. So I think that's a wonderful thing. Of course, we said all the great things about homeschooling, and one of the things that we also are able to do is choose the influences over our children. So I think probably most homeschoolers don't have the problems with maybe drinking and drugs that other kids might have, because the influence is out of our control, So I just feel like that's a good thing that's happened in our journey. I was pretty sure that we would have some drinking and drugs in our family, and it's been pretty safe. We've had a pretty good situation where we've been able to avoid those things thus far. So anyways, that's been kind of a good thing of what we don't have.
Yeah, and a lot of people too also avoid the whole bullying situation. So yeah, that's a huge benefit as well. So thank you, Sophia. It was such a pleasure to connect with you here and hear your passion and hear your story. And I can feel your passion for what you're doing. So thank you for sharing. And finally, let's jump over to Redonda. And Redonda, go ahead and share with us your links and your project and how people can get in touch with you. And also any final words for people that may be considering homeschooling, and some words of encouragement from you.
Well, I'm going to start with the words because I think that what I would tell folks is to go with your heart. Go with what your heart tells you. You know your kids better than anyone. Don't let anyone discourage you. I think Heather also said it. Whatever your choice is, that's the right choice for your children because you know your kids more than anyone. You know what they like. You know their passions. And also talk to your kids. Get their input. I think that's very important too. So listen to your kids, listen to what they want, and trust your instincts. That would be my best advice for anyone parenting, just as a parent, trust your instincts, trust your gut. And my links, the way to get a hold of me for Home Educators Network of Central Florida, if you are in Central Florida, we cover many, many counties. homeeducatorsnetwork.com. You can find us there. We also have a Facebook page. Just look up HENCF, I believe, is our Facebook page. But you can also find that link on homeeducatorsnetwork.com. As I said, I'm also a travel agent. I specialize in family vacations and also educational vacations. So you can contact me at mustbetrippin.com. So that's a way to find me too. My links are on my bio. Also, if folks are interested also in what I do with the Back to Nature, that link is on my bio as well.
Thank you so much. And we have everybody's links on the Conscious Consumer Network page for the Love of Learning and for this show page. So you can find all that information there. And we are so excited to have had the opportunity to speak to everybody on this panel. Thank you. What a beautiful show. I just want to say, whatever you do, wherever you are in the world, continue doing what you're doing just for the love of learning. So thank you. We'll see you next week. We're out.